Hello, everyone, and welcome to the breakout session, Coping with Cancer Through Art and Self-Expression. My name is Leslie Glenn. I have been living with metastatic breast cancer for 8.5 years. My very first conference here at Living Beyond Breast Cancer was in 2014. I came back in 2015 and went through the first Hear My Voice leadership volunteer training, and then back again in 2018 for the alumni training. I believe that all of you are here at the right time, in the right place, and I'm excited for what Stephanie is going to share with us today. Therapeutic art has played a huge part in my personal life, both before cancer and after cancer, and I believe that you're going to get a lot out of this session. I hope that you enjoyed the yoga class this morning and today's opening keynote, and I'm so happy again that you are joining us for this breakout session. If you have not already, please be sure that you have some paper, pencils, crayons, anything that you can draw with. It doesn't matter. Just grab something that is near to you, and you can use whatever you have on hand. I'm honored to be able to introduce our presenter, Stephanie McLeod Estevez. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and an art therapist with a practice in Portland, Maine. She was treated for triple-negative breast cancer and was the caregiver for her mother, who died of MBC when Miss McLeod Estevez was 26. Please, I invite you to go to lbbc.org to read her full bio. LBBC could not deliver programs like this conference without your support. And during this pandemic, your financial support is vital to allow us to continue to serve the MBC community. If you can, please make a gift today at lbbc.org donate. A gift of $25 would offset the cost for one person to access the content that we're offering this weekend. But any gift and any amount is greatly appreciated, and we thank you for your consideration. Please enter your questions via the Q&A box, which is located on the bottom. And Stephanie is unable to give personalized advice, so please frame your questions in a general manner so that they can be helpful for as many participants as possible. We also encourage you to connect and share your own insights with us in the chat, which is also located at the bottom of the screen. And so for now, I would like to introduce you to Stephanie McLeod Estevez. And Stephanie, I hand it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Leslie, thank you for such a warm introduction. And it's so fantastic to be here again with Living Beyond Breast Cancer and the Metastatic Conference in particular. As you can imagine, it's really near and dear to my heart. Let me pull up my presentation here. So this afternoon, we're going to start off with some basic information so that you have some context as to how I use these tools, both for myself and with all the women that I work with. And then we'll go into the experiential portion. And if there are any caregivers on the line, you also have a story to tell. And I hope that you will take advantage of these tools and techniques for you as well. So let me, and then after we do the active, experiential portion, we're going to leave some time for sharing or, whatnot. I think Leslie's going to share what she does, and then we'll wrap it up. So here's the original slide. Let me click on here. Okay. So this quote here is something that I found. It's a quote from Nelson Mandela that says, "There is nothing quite like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find the ways in which you have altered." And I often will start off with quotes when I'm doing a presentation, because in many ways, what we're talking about today is how you see yourself. And there's so many different ways in which a metastatic breast cancer diagnosis impacts and influences your life. And a lot of those ways aren't exactly visible. And so to the outside world, they might not be able to really comprehend what you're going through. And yet for your own emotional health and wellness, coming to terms, telling your story, figuring out how you want to live your life as well as you can is going to be really important. And so I hope the tools that you are going to be introduced to today will benefit you in figuring out how to kind of take those pieces, put them back together, and live a more integrated, resilient, thriving life. So, with that being said, I'd like to just talk about the three essential components of emotional hearing and healing: express, soothe, and process. So when we think about expressing, why is this important? Well, it's really important. Often my clients will talk about the baggage that they have. Expressing something is talking about what's happened or what is happening to me. When we tell our story, the art can help release that which you've been holding on to in your body, your mind, your spirit, and yourself. And this will help to release or ease that hypervigilant mind that's always seeking to keep you safe somehow, yet perhaps doesn't always allow you to express what's going on. We also, don't only want to tell our story, but we hope to feel soothed in the process of telling. And so when we express something that's happened to ourselves, that is the beginning of finding some form of validation, a way of affirming your reality, which allows your central nervous system to begin to relax and ease and feel soothed. And this happens even when you're telling a difficult story. And when you do it with art, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about art therapy, but this is not about creating a masterpiece. But when you're doing this with art, you literally allow yourself to get that story off of your chest and onto the paper. And that gives you a little bit of breathing room that, again, continues to help you soothe and be seen and feel heard, because if you want that healing process to happen, we need to be able to feel like we're hearing ourselves, and hopefully getting external validation as well. Finally, if we want to really heal something emotionally, we need to process. This is the final step in this sort of magical trine. It's a way of finding closure through what you've gone through or you're perceiving you're going to be going through, so that you can make meaning and find acceptance. And those are the pieces that help your identity feel reintegrated, because often I think that a cancer diagnosis, in particular a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, it feels like you often have that part of your story dominating the situation. And I would imagine that there's a lot of other wonderful things in your life that you want to feel deeply connected to. And so when we get to that processing phase, when we make meaning, it helps it kind of interweave a little bit more naturally into our story. And what I've witnessed time and time again is that telling it through art can lead to spontaneous healing and understanding, because it's unearthing that which has been inside of your subconscious. Because when we're going through something traumatic, we're often in a survival mode. And that means that you're not able to fully process each moment as it arises. Or even if you're doing what you can to stay present to it, there's pieces of our experience that reside in our subconscious. And this, even when we're talking about difficult experiences, when we're doing it through art, it's often felt sort of gently tapping in. And I think that's important. And when we go through this layers of processing our conscious and subconscious experiences, it becomes a more accurate telling of your story. Because again, we're sort of digging in and sort of more fully telling it. And that feels like you're going to get that closure that's so important because it leads to deeper understanding. So with that being said, some of you may have experience, like Leslie has a lot of experience with therapeutic art and art therapy. But if you're new to this, I want to tell you that it's really not a big deal if you feel like you have zero artistic skill at all. In fact, you probably have way more than you realize, and perhaps through conditioning have sort of lost that connection. But trust me, it's in there. And so hopefully this will help you have less performance anxiety, recognizing that we're not going for a finished product. The intention here is to express a thought, a feeling, an experience through color, shape. And now for some people, you might want to be very abstract as you're telling your story and the energy behind it. Others will want to do scenes, like illustrative scenes or images. So whatever you feel called to draw is the way to go. For today, we're doing visual art, but people have done incredible pieces through poetry, music, movement, and so on and so forth. But art therapy in reality truly is a form of communication. It helps translate your internal experience, which is often, again, unseen, perhaps misunderstood, or difficult to verbalize, and put it out onto paper. And once it's out on paper, it does make that experience that's often not seen more visible, more tangible. And that gives you the chance not only to take some space, as we've talked about it, because our psyche is still holding on to these pieces, what we haven't explored, but being able to see it gives you this perspective that when it's running around inside of you, often we lose that perspective. And again, when we are able to look at it, that spontaneous piece often comes from not just seeing it on paper, but for those little nuggets of understanding where it's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I experienced it. And so it just really changes the game in that regard. And I think it's important to really trust your instincts here. There's no right or wrong, whether you're new to using art and storytelling to help yourself heal emotionally. I want you to know that, it might feel a little awkward at first. You might notice some performance anxiety, but over time, if you allow yourself to practice, if you allow yourself to go within and to listen to what color really matches the situation, what do I feel like I'm drawn to doing next, you will build that instinctive, creative voice that's been there all along. So before we go into an experiential, I thought it would be helpful to share an example of something that I did when I was exploring some scanxiety that I was going through. And so as I can, hopefully you'll see here, this is not a Monet. I chose different colors and different movements. You can see there's like my body there, different colors to replicate some of the very intense feelings that I was feeling, yet also the gray, because I was somewhat numb at the same time. I chose to incorporate words into my piece because it not only was descriptive of what I remember and what I was going through, but it also, you can see like all the things I was worrying about, the advice I was giving myself, the understanding. And then on the external, there was just all these question marks. And when I did this drawing, it did help slow down that anxiousness. It helped me get a breath. It helped me to walk away and get regrounded until I knew what exactly was going on for myself. So that is some basic art information. And if you all have any questions, you can let me know. But we're going to go into the experiential piece, so you can continue to ask questions as we're doing the experiential as well. So let me move to the next screen. This is the art therapy screen. This screen is going to be up the entire time that you're doing your experiential, so you can refer back to it. First, I like to encourage people to do what I call an art therapy warm-up. It's kind of like when you go to a workout class. If you're going to a high intensity workout, you're not going to jump into the middle of the class. You're going to get your muscles warmed up. You're going to get into the rhythm of what you're there to do. And this art therapy warm-up works just the same. So hopefully you've got something to draw with in front of you. Again, they don't have to be more than basic art supplies, but pull out a piece of paper, grab the first thing that you can draw with, and start making some marks on your paper. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to lead you through a series of different types of marks that you can make. And then we'll go into practicing telling your story. So do some marks on the paper. It's always interesting to see where you want to begin. And, you know, as I give these pieces of advice or guidance as to what kind of marks, just notice if you experience something shift inside. So hopefully by now you're drawing a little bit. And I'd like you to take whatever it is you're drawing with and practice what it feels like to make very light marks, just barely, touching the page, and see again, as you do this throughout the paper, whatever type of mark you're making, how does it feel to just barely touch it? So we're going through, and now I'd like you to take whatever it is you're drawing with and really dig in, press firmly on the page, and just notice, how does it feel to press firmly? Now I'd like you to shift into making very slow, deliberate marks on your paper. See what it's like to really slow down with whatever it is you're drawing with, and just creep along. For some, this might be soothing. For others, this might be frustrating, and that's okay, because part of this is getting connected to how it feels. And now let's make tons of really fast marks, scribbling, whatever it is. That's probably scribbling is the fastest mark. You can make dots too, but just move fast and notice, what's it feel like? How does that change inside? Now, if you have something different and you want to switch to another color, another type of art tool, whatever you have in front of you, pick that up. And let's practice doing smooth shapes like circles and ovals and spirals. Just notice again, when you're doing something smooth, how does that feel inside? And then the opposite of smooth, of course, is perhaps making jagged or sharp edge drawings. So that could be triangles, it could be mountains, pointy things. Again, as you move across your paper and you're doing something different, how does it feel inside? And then the final step, if you haven't done so already, see if you can somehow blend more than one um, art tool. So, like, even if you're using a pencil, what's it like if you have a pen, or if you're using an oil pastel and you have a different color that you can start mixing in, and just notice what it feels like to begin blending, because the blending also can be a metaphor for how we experience our lives or how our feelings mix inside of us. And so we're going to move from shifting to this art therapy warm up, which I can always encourage anytime you're going to come and do something creative. And let's do some practice of telling your story. So I thought some prompts might be helpful, and you can choose to do whatever you want. But what I love about art is that, just like with stories, we have stories from our past, we have stories from our present, and then especially if we're feeling anxious or facing a lot of uncertainty, we even have stories going of our future. And of course, they can be happy stories too. But a prompt for a past story could be the day I learned I had Mets. A present day story, you might tell the story of what it's like to be with the LBBC community this weekend. What's it like to be with a group of women who really understand what you're going through? Or a future story, again, some of the ones that cause us the most sort of turmoil are the ones we tell ourselves when something is uncertain. So I thought a prompt for that might be one thing I worry about. Once you have decided what story you'd like to tell today, and we're going to take about 20 minutes to do this. I'll be the timekeeper and I will come in 10 minutes in to tell you where we're at. I want you to really take a moment to embody the story you're thinking of telling today. You want to sit in, you want to merge, think about, where is it when I think about this story? What do I notice inside of myself? What sensory information helps me tell and remember or project into the future how I was feeling, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the touches, the feels, if there's a taste involved, taste. And then once you feel like you're really connected with this moment that you want to tell, start using whatever you have on hand for art supplies to represent that story on paper. Again, it can be abstract, it can be images, whatever feels most appropriate to you. And then at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see, a suggestion to write the words that describe what you've drawn when you're ready. So like the Scanxiety example, I went ahead, did it in the middle of my art making, but you might want to wait for this particular step towards the end. I definitely recommend starting off with some drawing because, again, that can get into that subconscious component of your experience. So I'm going to put myself on mute. I will let you know when we're halfway through our time. And if you have any questions, put them up in the Q&A or the chat and I will respond to them. Leslie, were you participating in that directive?
I did. I absolutely did a little work here, and so I'll share it. I'm not real savvy on how to share, but so I did basically about the future, and so
Okay.
I'm a big proponent of the outdoors. And so I think of my journey or my experience with metastatic breast cancer like my hiking trails. And there are times that I'm very successful and I can get to the top of a mountain. And then there are other times where they're very challenging. Or I've even lost my way on a trail. And so there's uncertainty with that. And so looking in the future, I know that these types of experiences are just going to be part of my life and accepting them for, how they come along and how I experience them. And it's okay if there's some days that I feel like all I'm doing is going around in circles,
Right.
because that's what happens some days. And some days I may barely make it up a mountain or barely make it through the day, but that's okay as well. It's allowing us to have grace for ourselves, right? During this time. So yeah.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think about that moments of grace are key here.
Yes.
There's so much about that. When you were doing this, because I know you've done art before, and I don't know, like, when if how you expressed yourself changed once you had a metastatic diagnosis, but what sort of things did you observe inside today, even as you were like putting it out on paper?
Yeah, so I like to say that I always start with the committee in my head. So,
Yeah,
the
totally.
warm up is always a great way to start, because you have to deal with those voices saying, "What in the world are you doing? That looks really horrible." And I think that during the warm up, it gives you time to say, "Okay, I know you're there, committee,
Right.
but I'm not going to let you have front and center right now. This is about me." So acknowledging that and then just pushing through it.
Yes.
We have to push through it, so that we can get to the meat of what really wants to come out that may surprise us.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And in some respects, it's like those are the juicy moments we live for, right? And it's like if you keep at it long enough, like I often recommend, as you're drawing, like talk to your drawing and say to it, what else does this need? Like how, are there other details I can add that like really give it a fuller expression of what I'm going for? And it's funny, I think when we start talking to our drawings, that can like put the committee to the side, right? The little judgment, the inner critic, oh my God, I can't believe we're revealing this. All those pieces. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm wondering if anybody in our audience would like to share. You can share in the chat of what this experience was like. If you would like to share, we can bring you on camera so you can share what you've done. But I always like to say this, especially with those of us, living with this diagnosis, is that we are all here in a safe space, and we are all holding space for each other. So knowing that this isn't meant to, like Stephanie would be able to say, that we're not here to look at your art or, make any judgments. This is very open and very safe. So
I'm noticing that Margaret Donnelly would like to share.
Awesome, Margaret.
That's so cool. And there's a few questions up here on the page. If people, aren't really sure what they want to share, like something to be thinking about, whether you want to get on screen or not, like what did you observe inside as you look at what you've drawn? What words come to mind? What is it like to see your story on paper? Things of that nature. I see Margaret.
I have a journal. So I decided to do an entry in the journal, and let me turn off my background, because it just seems as though that's
interfering a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful background though.
Mount Fuji.
Again, kind of reckons back to what Leslie drew, which is kind of fun.
So anyway, this is my art journal, and what I drew is this. I just had CT scans, my first CT scan since I started, so I wanted to put my results in, and just a simple drawing and a little bit of watercolor, just to showcase, basically the red being, it seems bad, but look at the hot results that I got, so that's what I did.
I love it.
Nothing fancy, but you know, I'm journaling for myself, and that's about it.
And that's kind of the importance, right? How did it feel to put it onto paper and to see it in color?
I just love doing it. Just, you know, so I can go back and see how I've been feeling. This one I did before I lost my hair.
Oh, wow. And that looks like
Yeah.
a collage
Yeah.
there.
Hair today.
Hey, Stephanie, can I just interrupt just for 1 second? Some people can't see what Margaret has done, so can we have you stop sharing your screen?
Oh, sure. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that.
Sorry to interrupt, Margaret. We want everyone to see.
So this was my journal entry of hair today, gone tomorrow. You know, basically my hair before, and you know, and stuff. And this is what I did today of you know, having fabulous scans and what my results were. So just something simple, but you know, to me it's very personal, and it's, you know, not high art, but it just is expressive of how I'm feeling.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like the people in the chat are really benefiting from your
Yeah.
willingness to share too. Yeah.
They love your collage aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I have this little printer. It's like a sticky note printer. So this is like the Polaroid or HP Sprocket printer, and it prints photos from my phone onto sticky paper, so I can just throw it into the journal, which is really awesome.
What a great art hack. Thank you. I love that. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's lovely.
It's
Yeah, that is great. Would anyone else like to share? Thank you so much again, Margaret.
Someone was talking about, I use watercolor to portray, this is Krista, a sort of tornado, and then wrote the various things I heard in the first 2 weeks of diagnosis. Wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate from what I remember of that time frame. Yeah. And sometimes when we've done that piece, there's the component of visualizing it. And yeah, Linda's like tornado, so appropriate. And then other times I invite people to consider like, okay, so what does that tornado need to settle down, you know? And sometimes you can even creatively respond to what you've put on paper as a way to continue that self-soothing and comforting process. Oh, and Sam's got a creative way because you can't do drawing because of craniotomy. Doing a ripped collage with colored paper and magazine pictures was another way, and then writing with the printer. So it's pretty remarkable what we can come up with when we're facing some sort of limitation. I know that I'm going to go back, if we don't mind, into sharing screen because I'm mindful of time. But thank you, everybody who took time to share. I wish I could be with you in person, but I feel it here.
Next year.
Next year, absolutely. Oh my goodness. So I wanted to just let you know that if you enjoyed today and you want more, there's a couple of different ways that I can continue to support that with you all. First of all, you could create your own roadmap of like, what are some of the parts of my stories I need to tell? From listening to a webinar that I did, it was called The Psychology of Cancer. And I'm more than happy to provide you a link for that. You can reach out to me by email. It's a long one. It's creativetransformationsllc@gmail.com. But again, you'll be getting a recording of this. So if you can't write that all out, no worries, just go to the end or re-listen to it. But I've also recently opened up something that I'm really loving. It's an art therapy for breast cancer community on Mighty Networks, which is a low-cost membership program where women of all stages of breast cancer and all sorts of stages of treatment, not in treatment, whatnot, are gathering to learn more about the tools of art therapy and in community. And it's so special, what is coming up for people. We're sharing our stories and finding the emotional healing you seek. And it's a structured program where, each month we're looking at a theme, and then people are reflecting upon how does that theme relate to my personal experience, and then sharing it. And I'm along with you for the ride. I do include the Psychology of Cancer webinar because I think it's so important for that foundation of knowledge. And you can try it free for 2 weeks. So you can learn more by visiting creative-transformations.mn.com. It's also on my website. So before we do the official closing, I wanted to share a final quote with you that says, "If you have the soul of a warrior, you are a warrior. All those other things, they are the glass that contains the lamp, but you are the light inside." And I know you all are going through a lot, but I really hope that these opportunities to gather, to learn, to explore are going to really resource you and fill that bucket for whatever is coming next. So I'll stop my share. And
All right.
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I actually live in Oregon, so I'm still in the morning. So I have to check the time before I say good afternoon or good morning. But this was such an inspirational time together, Stephanie. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. And I hope that everyone joins us for the next keynote, which is Thriving Through Food. So you can take a little bit of a break, go gather your ingredients, and we will see you in a few moments in the auditorium. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.